Good evening, everyone. I thank you so much for joining us during market hours. But we thought it appropriate that we do the call now because given Diwali, I'm sure everybody has shopping plans. But it is extremely important at this stage where we stand in terms of indices to hear a very sober and clear view on where we are headed over the next few weeks and months. I take great pleasure in having Mr. Sandeep Neema join us for this call and give us his views on what he believes is the market trend, the trend for prices of commodities, and how he sees the global economy shaping up and what stocks and sectors are likely to do very well. Without further ado, Sandeep ji, welcome to the call and look forward to getting your insights, which can guide our investors, including if they want to buy something in the next 17 minutes. I'm assuming that they will be very happy punching buttons for you. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thanks, Sandeep. So, welcome everyone. I'll briefly take you through what I have just put together as a small presentation on the markets and economy, and then we can open this up for Q&A. Is the screen visible now to everyone?
Yes, yes, Sandeep ji.
Okay. So, yeah. So basically, as the title says, we Indian markets are now poised for a bullish cycle. We'll go into the details. So let's first talk about what the global economy is because that has a lot of impact on various markets, including ours. And what happens in the US is very critical to know, and it's of a lot of interest to investors in the current context. So in US, as we know that Fed did not cut rates, did cut rates by 25 basis in the last meeting. And this was the first rate cut that we saw in 2025. And every time Fed meets, there is expectation that they will cut, but they have not cut for various reasons. And some of the reasons we have listed in through some of the charts here is basically showing that inflation in US is inching up slightly. So if inflation inches up, it actually prevents a major cutting rates from the central banks. So I think that that is one of the reasons why we have not seen any significant rate cuts. The other part is, which is the chart on the top right hand side, is the unemployment rate, which is a very important parameter which the Fed tries to see. And that unemployment rate has actually been inching up in the current year from January onwards. If you see, the unemployment rate has actually remained elevated at 4% plus. And in our view, this unemployment rate will only inch up as we go into 2026. And in US, the growth has slowed down considerably from levels of 2.5%. We are now seeing sub 2% growth. And our expectation is that this growth will further slow down over the next few quarters. However, what has happened is therefore that we feel that there will be probably limited rate cuts from Fed, at least in this year. While the market expects that there will be one more rate cut, our view is that probably US may not be able to see any further rate cuts because inflation will be inching up. It is already inching up. And economy is like slowing down. So this is kind of a classic economic theory which says that this is like a stagflation situation where you have inflation but low growth. So US is probably entering into that, and next year we could see deeper cuts in the growth rates of US. So what it means for the market, specifically the US market, is that market has actually been driven to new highs by technology sector as we see there, and that also top 10 stocks, right? The rest of the market has not joined the rally significantly, and that will remain the case, I guess, as we go along into the 2026 year. So overall, markets may remain positive, but it will be a very narrower kind of a move that we have seen, and it will continue for some more time. This rally is more AI driven than a broad-based rally in the economy. So let's look at India. So India stands very tall in this kind of a chaos across the globe, with US raising tariffs, the tariff wars going around and also being put on India. So if you look at India's numbers, so India numbers again, inflation is at all-time low. And yeah, although we feel that inflation in India बॉटम आउट हो गया है, थोड़ा यहाँ से ऊपर जाएगा, लेकिन फिर भी इट इज़ अ वेरी पॉजिटिव सिनेरियो फ्रॉम इकोनॉमिक एंड मार्केट perspective. And we saw that RBI did cut rate in June, and we probably might at best see one more rate cut. As we feel that inflation भी यहाँ इंडिया में ऊपर जाएगा, तो रेट कट शायद एकदम एग्रेसिव नहीं होगा. But GDP numbers have been upgraded, and we 6.2 से start किया था हमने year. Then we have reached now 6.8. RBI in its last policy meet has raised the GDP forecast for this year to 6.8. And we feel that this also can get upgraded to close to 7 as we move on into the fourth quarter. And we'll see the reasons why we think that India's growth rate could accelerate. तो अगर आप पीएमआई देखो, जो भी लीडिंग इंडिकेटर्स है इकोनॉमी का, पीएमआई और एफएमसीजी सेल्स, और नाउ द लास्ट 4 weeks कार सेल्स, पैसेंजर व्हीकल सेल्स, all that actually are pointing to a sustained recovery from the lows of last 2 or 3 quarters. The only thing which is negative and which is not actually reflected, which is not reflecting that the growth will pick up, is the credit growth in the economy from the banks. Now, credit growth has actually remained sub 10%. But we feel that this will also fire now in the second half, and some of the reasons we have listed. So if you see, most of you would know that there have been multiple policy positive measures in the last 6 months, starting from the budget, where IT relief came to the income tax uh, payers. There is the rate cuts which have happened from RBI. Then one of the biggest reform which took place after September 22nd, the implementation of GST 2.0, where there have been a lot of rationalization. And then we already probably are waiting for an eighth pay commission, which should be announced very soon. And some few other expectations that we have is on the tariff response. Either there could be a tariff deal with the US, or there could be a policy measure which will mitigate the impact of the high tariffs that US has posed. And then finally, we are already seeing manufacturing reforms being extended from PLI schemes that we saw to the electronic sector, and that we expect that that will come to be extended to a lot of other sectors in the economy. So overall, there are multiple triggers for economic growth to now move into a faster lane as we get into the second half. And our expectation is therefore from the economy is that it is set for acceleration. Inflation seems to have bottomed out. RBI would probably maintain hold on rates. They have aggressively cut rates by 50 basis point in the second quarter. So upside risk to the expectation of GDP remains very high, and we will probably end up the year close to 7%, and next year also looks solid in terms of growth, with growth at coming at around 7.2%. So economy doing well. Let's look at how the markets have done. So markets actually last 1 year India has been flat. Year to date it has been almost flat, 2-3% here and there. The reasons are been actually the earnings growth. And a lot of you who are now market participants would know that earnings have been very poor from corporate sector in India. Now, if you look at the last quarter, which was the first quarter of 26, FY26, we have seen very tepid earnings growth season, and primarily dragged by banks. So banks' earnings growth was actually negative, and Nifty earnings growth overall, if you include banks, was very I would say below average, below 10%. But there is one important thing that has now happened in the last quarter, is that if you see last 4 quarters, we have consistently seen earnings being downgraded by consensus. So the market has actually seen a lot of downgrades in the last 3, 4 quarters. But in the last quarter, an interesting thing has happened is that the number of downgrades have actually become very, very minimal. So that shows that probably we are into an upgrade cycle now, starting from now. This second quarter is the season which is currently going on. And as the analysts' estimates come out now, market will probably see some kind of upgrades in earnings in the second half, as well as in the as well as in the in fiscal year 27. So I feel that the downgrade cycle is over. We are into an upgrade cycle now. Let's look at the performance. Performance of India has, as I said, has been very, very poor uh, on an in an absolute basis as well as on a relative basis. On a relative basis, India has underperformed many, many markets across the world, including Dow Jones, S&P, Dow Jones, S&P, emerging markets, and and the underperformance is very, very stark. And if you all follow the emerging market performance and India's performance vis-a-vis emerging market, this is probably one of the years in the last decade that India has actually been such a huge underperformer. Right. So there is an underperformance of almost 1 year. Secondly, positioning of foreign investors. If you see, everybody sees negative numbers of foreign investors in the last since the last 2, 3 months, right? In fact, more. If I look at the positioning of India in the portfolios of foreign investors, India is having a huge maximum underweight position now in the last 20 years. We have not seen that kind of an underweight position on India in the foreign investors portfolio. So what it means is that the markets are underperformed. The positioning is very light, underweight. And thirdly, India used to trade at a premium to emerging market valuation. Now that premium, because of the correction in Indian markets and because of momentum in the other markets, that premium has come down to the long-term average, which is the chart on the right-hand side bottom shows. So these three events point to again the fact that there is now market is set for probably mean reversion. It will come back to what we have seen in the last decade or so as far as Indian markets is concerned. And that probably will be how will it drive? What will drive this underweight position to be cut in foreign portfolios? What will drive foreign portfolio money to turn positive? It's the earnings growth. And earnings growth is coming, as we have seen. It's coming. We will see upgrades. We will see maybe major upgrades in the next few quarters, and that will drive the money flow from negative to positive. Valuations have also come down. As I said, overall India used to trade at 22, 23 times. Now we are at 19 times, which is in line with long-term average. Mid-cap, small-cap valuations have also come down. The premium of mid-cap to Nifty has also come down sharply. So all that again gives some comfort or a major comfort that valuation problem नहीं है. इंडिया का अंडर परफॉर्मेंस हो चुका है. Earnings upgrade will come. Macroeconomics are also supportive. So everything supports the onset of a solid, strong rally. Okay, and then we know that domestic flows have been very strong. SIP flows continue to be the support for the market. Despite all that has happened in India in the last 2 quarters, starting from Operation Sindoor, and then we had the tariff, then we have H1B visa issue. So everything that can happen to India from a negative this thing has happened. But market उधर ही है 25,000 के आसपास ही +or -3% here and there. Why? Because of the domestic flows which remain strong, and they put a floor on the market. So market यहाँ से बहुत नीचे नहीं जाएगा. Can we see a 20% correction with this kind of a flow? The answer is no, unless there is some macroeconomic event which happens, which we have already seen now, that now we look like there is a positive macroeconomic momentum which will take place, which will take the markets to newer highs. So therefore, what we see is that we look for a strong 20 to 25%, maybe even higher rally, and this is a non-consensus कॉल मोस्ट मार्केट में व्हाट यू वॉइसेस यू विल हियर इज दैट अच्छा ठीक है मार्केट ठीक लग रहा है, लेट अस सी द सेकंड क्वार्टर अर्निंग्स, लेट अस सी हाउ द अपग्रेड्स हैपन, कौन सा सेक्टर. बट आवर कॉल इज दैट the stage is set for a strong rally over the next 2 quarters. Post that, we will take it up as it comes as we enter into the FY27. But FY26 का end तक तो 25% का 25% rally is looks like a very high probability. उसमें what kind of sectors and stocks will run? Well, if Nifty has to do 25% from here, then obviously all the high betas will run. The small caps will definitely outperform. The mid caps will outperform, and the large caps also obviously have to take the index up, right? So it will be an all-pervasive rally. We have a few sectors which we like, which will probably outperform even the Nifty if and when Nifty does 25% from here. So what are those sectors? So first sector that we like and we have been bullish on the sector is metals. Metals, again, fundamentally, I would just briefly talk about it. Metals, last 10 years, there has been no capacity additions in the globe in any of the metals. So steel, if you take copper, aluminium, कोई capacity addition नहीं हुआ because excess capacity था. अब वो काफी कुछ absorb हो चुका है. There is incremental, there has been very low capacity additions. The capacity utilization have been going up, and incremental demand as and when it comes up, we will drive the metal prices. And if you see, metal prices are already firing. So metal में it includes everything. I'm not including gold and silver. We'll talk about that slightly later. But if you look at base metal, aluminum is up about 7-8% year to date. Copper is up about 10-12% year to date. Zinc is up. And the other metals like palladium, platinum, they are up some 40-50%. Silver, we all know, is up more than 50% year to date. So all these industrial metals will fire, have started firing, and they will continue to do well because there is a structural issue in the industry, which people will realize as we go along and as the demand picks up. Now the question is, demand कहाँ से आएगा? US स्लो डाउन हो रहा है, चाइना भी ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. लेकिन मेटल में क्या है, एनी कमोडिटी, द इंक्रीमेंटल डिमांड सेट्स द प्राइस. So right now people are expecting that China will grow at 5% or 4.5%, and metal demand there would be only 3.5-4%. But if metal demand in China picks up to 4.1, 4.2, this will actually set the this thing in the metal prices because there is no supply available right now. Incrementally, the utilization levels are very high, and India continues to grow at 10%. So metal is a solid story to play. Metal index is up about 15% year to date. Nifty is flat. So metal index has been a huge outperformer. It will continue to outperform at least for the next 2-3 quarters. Which stocks to buy? Well, there are multiple large cap, mid cap, small cap. You can choose whichever you're comfortable with from a risk perspective. Then the next sector is banks and NBFCs. Now, banks and NBFCs, as I mentioned, there have been very poor credit growth in the economy in the last 2-3 quarters. We have seen sub 10% credit growth, and everybody is waiting कि भाई credit growth कब होगा. अगर 10, 12, 13, 14% जाएगा तो ये सारा banks fire करेगा, and economy will also fire because the bank credit is a leading indicator of economic growth. Now that stage is again set as we discussed in our economic overview that GST reform हो चुका है, so consumption will pick up. When consumption picks up, you will see personal loan being taken, housing loan being taken, credit card loans आएगा. फिर MSME जो MSME and small scale sector which was in trouble over the last 3-4 quarters will also slowly come out because of this improved consumption cycle. And as the consumption cycle grows, we will see that corporates will put more capex, and if they put more capex, there will be demand for corporate credit. So bank credit will definitely grow. Right now, consensus thinks that 10 to 11%, 12% credit growth होगा. My expectation is that we will see this number getting upgraded to 13-14% as we go into the third quarter. And further for FY27, we could see a 15% kind of a credit growth. So when credit growth happens, what happens is that banks ka jo last 3-4 quarters ka earnings, poor earnings जो आया था, that was primarily because of the asset quality. So if the credit growth is not there, there is pain in this in the system. MSME का जो book है, lending book, that has also seen lot of asset quality issues. जो आपने personal loan दिया उसमें भी asset quality issues है. But that if the consumption fires, that some of these pain will go away. And again, market is at very low numbers as far as earnings are concerned for banks and NBFCs. If I look at the valuation of many of the banks, they are all quoting at 1.3, 1.4. If you leave aside HDFC and maybe to some extent ICICI is also 1.8, 1.9. And major part would be in PSU banks, because PSU banks in an upcycle, whenever credit growth upcycle happens, PSU banks are the best placed because they are the most affected in a down cycle. And as the upcycle happens, their credit quality improves significantly. So the delta in earnings is very large in PSU banks. And PSU banks, if earnings growth comes, what is the valuation? SBI, the best bank, the largest one, is quoting at 1.2, 1.3 times book. बाकी सब बैंक तो वन लेस देन वन टाइम बुक है, तो वो तो मतलब if the cycle picks up, they will all fire significantly because there is valuation support, valuation comfort, and if earnings growth comes back, which it will, given our expectation of a stronger credit growth, we will see that the PSU banks will probably outperform even private bank. Overall, banking sector will do well, NBFCs will do well. Pick up the stocks which you like, which you are comfortable from large cap, mid cap to small cap. The third sector is basically power, industrial, energy. So the power and renewable energy are long-term structural story in India. Next 5-7 years, we will see continuous growth and capex in the sector, driven by reforms from the government and also the need to move into alternate energy sources, which are basically solar and wind. So the entire ecosystem of power and energy is buzzing with lot of orders. So आप कोई भी transmission company से बात करोगे तो everybody is full with 1 year order and the visibility is strong. So this is a structural story. Everybody knows in the market about the structural story, but the fact is that this will continue year after year for at least next 5 years, because there is strong visibility in revenue for a lot of these companies. So pick any company in the sector which is in transmission network, or which is in transformers, or which is in capital goods, which is supplying basically turbines, or maybe supplying even gears to some of these power companies. So everybody has their hands full. And then the new age companies which are into solar, there also there are, for example, solar pumps, there have been few new listings. So all of them, if you see, the visibility is very strong for 1 or 2 years at least. And if the government continues to give subsidy for solar pumps, then these companies will again continue to do well with high visibility. Valuation multiples for these companies in the sector are not cheap, obviously, because the market has already discovered. But whenever there is strong visibility, अगर मुझे 2-3 साल 20% earnings growth दिख रहा है without any significant risk, then I don't mind paying higher valuation multiples, because there is some comfort there in terms of earnings which will come. So here there is a sector which has visibility, which should be part of everybody's portfolio. The next is the industrials, which are part of like power. There is significant industrial activity which will pick up, according to us, over the next 18 months or so. And industrials is a cycle. Again, the cycle will pick up, manufacturing will pick up, and anybody which is connected to, like, take forging, casting, auto ancillaries, or even suppliers to gear, as I mentioned, gears, compressor guys, जो भी ये इको स्पेस में इंडस्ट्रियल कैपिटल गुड्स का, they will again see some incremental order flows visibility to revenues. Valuation is not very expensive, but not very expensive vis-a-vis their earlier historical average. So these are some of the sectors which should do well when Nifty goes up from here till 30,000 plus. That is our target, 30 to 32,000 के बीच में. Some of the sectors which we think we have to be careful and stock selective will be consumer staples, consumer durables. Then we are underweight on pharma IT. We have to be very selective in pharma. Some good visibility names we should select. Other or valuation comfort wala company hai, so we can select. But if you ask me whether I should overweight my portfolio in pharma or IT, the answer is no. Pick some good stocks which are there, and that will help you. But not a time to overweight these sectors. There are a lot of headwinds for these sectors from global as well as local competition. Chemicals, probably again the cycle has turned down. Chemical prices have gone down, so I don't think we should look at sector as an overweight. Real estate will see some patches of growth. We'll have to wait and see whether the growth story in real estate is sustainable or not. Intuitively, if the economy does well, then real estate will also do well because there will be demand for commercial real estate as well as for residential real estate. So real estate is something which you need to watch out for. Not all companies are worth buying, but there are few which are good ones which you should look at. So this is our view on the market sectors. Obviously, every market has some risk and every period has a risk. So there are risks like geopolitics, tariff, crude prices, monsoon, inflation, बिहार इलेक्शन. ये सब आपको सुनने को मिलेगा. अभी ट्रेड डील हो रहा है नहीं हो रहा है, इंडिया में पॉलिटिक्स में क्या चल रहा है. आप जस्ट रीड द लास्ट सेंटेंस दैट आई हैव रिटन. Market will negotiate the above risk in its journey towards the target that we have set. So market, please understand, market likes chaos. अगर सब कुछ अच्छा दिख रहा है तो मार्केट जल्दी से 30,000 नहीं पहुंचेगा. लेकिन if there is chaos and in that there are some green shoots which are visible, which we think are visible now, market will actually fire. And which is what the stage is set. आज का दिन अच्छा है. I don't know, Sandeep probably had a this thing that आज मार्केट 1% ऊपर जाने वाला है. 1% मार्केट अप बहुत टाइम से नहीं देखने को मिला है. सो टुडे इज अ गुड डे to talk and be bullish on the market. And I can very well confidently say that we will see such days, many days as we go along in the coming weeks or coming months. So you will see that 1% days more frequently now, given that their earnings growth is going to come back, valuations are comfortable, and FIs are underweight. So this is what our view is on the market. I think we can throw open the floor for any questions anybody want to ask or any discussions on the market sectors. Right, Sandeep ji, is that okay?
Thank you so much, Sandeep ji.
Yeah.
Dipen, may I request that if there are any questions in the chat box, you take these up. Sandeep ji will try and spend 2-3 minutes. If there are any questions that can be addressed on the spot, uh, I would request all the participants to write those in the chat box. And Dipen, if you could please help uh, asking Sandeep ji what those questions are.
Sure, sir. Sure. There is a one question, sir.
Yeah.
We on USD and
Yeah. So if you see, USD has quietly, actually DXY index has gone up quietly from 95, 96 to 99 levels. It has turned around in the last 2 days. But given our view that Fed probably might find it difficult to cut rates. So if that thesis is right, then we will probably see some impact on the dollar. So if Fed does not cut rate, we probably will see some kind of dollar appreciation from here in the short term. But if you ask me over the longer term, USD may do 2-3%, 4% up from here. But finally, over the next, if you ask me a 5-year view, then I think dollar is going down, right? So it will go down from here and rupee will appreciate. So all currencies which are which have a correlation to dollar will appreciate, all emerging market. And this could be one of the reasons why a lot of emerging market countries will outperform also the US. So that last decade of outperformance of US markets that we have seen, we will see that next decade it will not repeat, partly because of the weak dollar. But over the short term, there could be some bump up in dollar, but that's about it. I think longer term it will go down.
Okay, great, sir. There is a one more question. The view of the gold and silver, both in the term of the dollar and rupee in 25-26.
Yeah, both very difficult to take a call on this, but okay, I'll tell you. See, the way I look at it is the entire financial markets across the globe is probably being reset. Historically, after 1971, we have seen that US dollar has been the currency for global exchange, right? And that probably now in 2025, after almost 50 years or 55 years, we are seeing that there are some winds of change in that global financial order. That one of the winds of change is that lot of countries, and you must be reading every day, that do not want the dollar hegemony to continue. They want to diversify out of dollar. So if you see China, Russia, India, the BRICS, and the lot of other countries, including Europe, they are selling US treasuries and diversifying their assets. And that is one of the reasons why gold prices have also gone up, because a lot of central banks are loading up onto gold. वाइट कीप डॉलर, बिकॉज डॉलर को कुछ हो गया तो इतना बड़ा लॉस होगा पूरा आपका होल्डिंग में, that it will not be able, you will not be able to recover. So Japanese were the first ones to sell, then Chinese sold US treasuries, and and that is why people are central banks are buying gold. So we are going to see some kind of a reset and some kind of that is why longer term our forecast is that dollar will decline because there will be a reset. And as you reset, some of the qualities of gold as a, because pre 97 1971 to gold order tha na, gold was the main currency, right? But it was only post 1971 that the US changed that order into US to dollar. So now we will see that some kind of a reset happening over longer period. It is not going to happen in 1-2 years. So to answer it in a short way, gold has gone up very fast, both gold and silver quickly. Any asset which goes up quite fast will have some kind of intermediate corrections as it goes up. Over the longer term, gold has a much brighter future, I would say, primarily because there will be a financial reset and dollar weakening.
Right, sir. Good. So I have one question.
Yeah.
How would you rank a sector in a term of the near-term earning potential, say over the next 2-3 quarters, considering both growth visibility and the valuation comfort? If you want to give the rank the sectors, which sector you think so?
That I have already ranked. So metal first,
Yes.
PSU bank second, other
Okay.
banks third, NBFCs fourth. So entire financial sector, but usme PSU banks first.
Got it.
Okay, and then you can come to industrials.
Okay. Okay. There is a one more questions. Post 26,300, I guess this Nifty with 26,300. Should we see once again like 20,500 or 19,000 level before making a major top?
No,
No.
no. I am not a technical guy, but I can tell you that the undercurrents, fundamental undercurrents are strong enough, and that is what I argued, that it doesn't look like, why would we have a 20% correction from 25,000 to 20,000 unless there is a major macro event
Mm.
or a geopolitical event which I cannot predict and nobody can predict. But apart from that, if there is no major macro disaster, we are not going to go 22% down from the levels. So it looks like we'll go up first, and then we will revisit. We will talk to you again maybe when we reach 32,000, and then we'll take a call. कैसा earnings जा रहा है, economic growth क्या है, geopolitics कैसा है, crude क्या कर रहा है, rupee किधर गया. That all we will put together and see how our view changes or remains the same. But right now, it looks like the risk reward is in favor of going up. The downside could be 3-4%. 23,800, 20, lot of technical analysts say 23,800 वो अच्छा support है, 24,800 एक support है. So whatever, but if you take 1,200 by on 25,000 Nifty, it is 4%. And upside, we are talking of 25%. So risk reward is favorable. As an investor, you should always look at risk reward. Downside 4-5% है, ऊपर 25% है, ले लो.
Mhm. Right. So there are a lot of question on gold and silver. So there is a one question like someone say like reason for the gold is clear, but why the silver is going up? Is there any fundamental reasons in that?
Yeah, so gold, silver move together. Number one, they both are precious metals. Number two is they just as the qualities of gold as a hedge against inflation, silver also has a quality of hedge against inflation. Thirdly, silver is also an industrial metal. It is used for a lot of industrial by industrial companies. And in the new world order, where a lot of investments are going into chips, into AI, and into renewable energy, silver is seeing renewed demand. So there is an industrial demand, and there is over and above that, there is a hedge against inflation because it is linked to gold. So silver has a double headwind, I would say. तो
Right.
actual demand भी है from industrial users, and then you have store of value like gold. Gold is going up, तो silver तो पीछे जाता ही है.
Right. So there is a one more question. In the current scenario, should one be overweight on the large cap or look at the mid and small cap space more?
See, I do not know the risk profile of the individual I've asked, but as I mentioned, that depending upon your risk profile, and I also mentioned that if Nifty does 25%, intuitively small caps will do more than 25% because they are high beta, right?
Right.
But the risk is also higher in small cap. But returns will be much higher if Nifty does 20. Similarly, mid caps will also give more than 25%.
Right. Right. How should one look the that infrastructure investment trust, given you are the quite bullish on the power or transmission space?
Which you talked about some specific company or what?
No, they don't mention any company. They just saying like infrastructure investment trust करके जो होता है उसमें
Infrastructure.
जैसे
Okay, so
yeah infrastructure.
infrastructure investment obviously will continue to continue, and it will driven in India by power sector and secondly the road sector. So वो तो गवर्नमेंट का पुश लास्ट 2-3-4 साल से है ना, पोस्ट कोविड भी है, प्री कोविड भी था, and that will continue. And as I said, power is a part of infrastructure only. वहाँ तो very strong push is there. You look at any power sector company, everybody has visibility, everybody is talking of great numbers. एंड वैल्यूएशंस आर आल्सो वेरी एक्सपेंसिव, बट फिर भी वो चलेगा क्योंकि उसका अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ आ रहा है.
Right. How about the data center sector, sir? Data center sector.
See, data center is something like I would say a new fad. A new fad, what happens is a new sector when it emerges, it pulls in a lot of investors. There is merit in the growth of data centers, yes, of course, because there have been so many GCCs being put, so many global capability centers, so many data centers now being put, and the AI is driving that. And TCS is also recently a software service guy is now also entering data center. So data center has long-term story, but whether investors will make money, you have to see multiples because valuation सारा जो भी data center बात कर रहे हैं companies, वो उनका valuation is very expensive. So you have to be very selective in there. Data centers is a good long-term story. Just as since you are talking of data center, just as battery energy storage system. So you would have heard this word BESS. Every company now wants to include BESS in as part of its strategy. किसी को भी अगर अपना वैल्यूएशन इंप्रूव करना है तो लॉट ऑफ पीपल आर जस्ट इंक्लूडिंग बेस्ट इन देयर. सो बट वेदर एक्चुअली इट ट्रांसफॉर्म्स इनटू अर्निंग्स is a long term story, we don't know, but वैल्यूएशन उसको मिल रहा है. सो यू हैव टू बी रियली केयरफुल. ये इनिशियल जो भी सेक्टर रहता है which are in vogue or in news, you have to be a little careful. But as a sector, yes, the story is good. You have to be very selective in choosing the companies.
Right. Your thoughts on the defense sector as currently due to various war, the big tailwinds are there in the next 3 5 years. You see the defense sector will do well. Any stock specific?
Yes, so defense sector will do well because if you see globally, not even in India, globally everybody wants to increase their spend on defense. Take any European country, take any Asian country, take any Latin country, and take India also. So everybody is now, because of the changed world order, everybody wants to be careful and shore up their defenses. So that means that the defense sector will is also like a structural long-term bull story. Okay, so the order books that we have already seen, आप हिंदुस्तान एरोनॉटिक्स ले लो, भारत इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स ले लो, या दूसरा कोई भी कम है, सबका ऑर्डर बुक आज वेरी, अगेन विजिबिलिटी इज वेरी स्ट्रांग एंड दैट इज नॉट गोइंग टू गो अवे वेरी सून. So select companies where you are comfortable. There are a whole lot of companies again in large cap, mid cap, small cap. There is an ETF also. So all that and again defense is another sector which is another 3 to 5 year good visibility, good story.
Okay. Okay. The I think that most of the questions are the repeat only. So last question I'm just taking, sir. The what's your view on the EMS sector and your top picks?
EMS is the electronic manufacturing. So
Yes.
I see the sector is really good. Again, in investments, as an investor, you have to differentiate between two things. One is whether the business is really good or not, sector is good. And secondly, at what price it is available. Ultimately, your returns will be driven by the valuation and what pricing the market has done to that business, right? So EMS business is really good. Again, solid visibility. They're growing at 30-40% EBITDA. But आप valuation देखेंगे तो सब 70 times quote हो रहा है, 80 times. Now I don't feel comfortable to buy a stock which is at 80 times. So what happens is that the best is discounted in that 80 multiple. उसमें अगर थोड़ा भी कुछ मिस हुआ तो stock actually tanks because the expectation is so large and there is possibility that you will obviously miss some earnings estimate by 2 3 4% here and there. The stock actually because at 80 times you are not going to double your money, let me put it this way. So you'll have to really be patient and hold it for over a longer period of time. Sector is good, value is maybe little expensive.
Right, sir.
अरे
I think we
आपको
are done
मैंने
with the
जो
questions.
सेक्टर बताया ना, जो वो
Ah,
सारा सेक्टर का वैल्यू उसमें डीप वैल्यू है. आपको
right.
आपको एक पीएसयू बैंक मिल रहा है 0.8 0.9. यू गो एंड इनटू द हिस्ट्री ऑफ एनी पीएसयू बैंक एंड सी हाउ दे हैव कोडेड. ये उनका ट्रफ वैल्यूएशन है. सो व्हाट यू हैव टू सी इज ये अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ आएगा कि नहीं. अगर अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ नहीं आया तो वैल्यूएशन उधर ही रहेगा. लेकिन अगर अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ आ गया, विच इज व्हाट वी आर बेटिंग ऑन, देन तो ये वैल्यूएशन आपको बड़ा डेल्टा देगा. सेम इज मेटल्स. वी आर सो ईएमएस में क्या है, वो पीपल हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कवर्ड दैट स्टोरी. वो 5 times स्टॉक हो चुका है लास्ट 5 years में. यहां से डबल होगा क्या? इट माइट बी ए स्लो प्रोसेस. Earnings growth are good, but it might be a slow process. There could be a derating also, or the valuation remains the same. The stock goes up by the same amount as the earnings growth, which is 20-30%. So that's what it is. So if you're happy with that, you can buy an EMS space.
So one question is asking if you see the interest rate cut continue in India, then the bank margin will be pressure. So how the bank will be outperform?
No, I think that is what I said. Our view is that interest rate at best एक और cut होगा अगर हुआ तो. Because we feel that inflation has bottomed out, just as in the US it has bottomed out. यहाँ पर भी लग रहा है bottom हो गया है. If not significant, and RBI itself is projecting 3.74% inflation by March 25, March 26. So उनका target 4% का already है. अगर उससे 4.1, 4.2 हो गया तो वो cut नहीं करेंगे. So the probability of a cut is low. even if they cut 25 basis, the strong credit demand, which will be there because of one more cut, will overtake the fall in margins. जो पहले कट किया था वो 50 बेसिस था और उसके पहले 25-25 का 2 हो चुका है, तो 100 बेसिस कट हो चुका है. इसके लिए वो मार्जिन नीचे आ चुका है. बैंकिंग अर्निंग्स हैव एक्चुअली गॉन डाउन सिग्निफिकेंटली इन द लास्ट 4 क्वार्टर, एंड दैट इज व्हाट वी आर सेइंग दैट ये अभी अर्निंग्स का बॉटम हो चुका है. रिस्क इज लो, further reward is appearing to be high.
Got it, sir. Got it. I think we are done with the questions, sir. Sandeep, sir, you want to add something? Sandeep Aishwa?
No, Dipen, thank you very much. Sandeep ji, I would like to thank you for taking up this session. I'm sure your entire coverage of how markets look, etc., have given a lot of confidence to the participants. I would, of course, welcome the participants to send in any questions that they might have to advisorydesk@plindia.com. In fact, right now, I have the advisory team sitting next to me, and they are extremely happy, Sandeep ji. They look very charged, and I'm sure that they're praying for a trading session tomorrow. So thank you very much, and
My
look
pleasure.
forward to hearing from all the participants on how they felt the session was, and what it is that they would like to ask further can be emailed to us. Thank you, Sandeep ji, and thank you to all the participants.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. Bye. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you. एक मिनट इसको बाहर कैसे जाते हैं?